What's up, everyone? Welcome back to C&D Sports. The World Series stage is set. Astros, Phillies, the championship series are done, so we'll take a look at those, and then we'll get you some analysis on the series that is to be Phillies, Astros. Not necessarily the series we were predicting, but I can say after going 1 for 4 in the wild card series, 1 for 4 in the DS, I went 2 for 2 in my adjusted, my bracket beginning of the postseason bracket was not right. But 2 for 2 from the last video. I had a gut feeling about the Phillies and the Astros. I thought we're a much better team than the Yankees, and they proved that.
Yeah, and obviously Houston dominates the Yankees, a 4-0 sweep in the CS. I mean, I don't think anybody had any doubts. The Yankees, they struggle to put the ball in play outside of the home runs. There's not much there offensively and defensively. They didn't have a shortstop and the team is a little slower. So, how did that series play out in your eyes?
Well, yeah, I think you kind of touched on a lot of things that they didn't do well. I mean, they were obviously inferior to the Astros in basically everything, every category you could think of. And the only thing that they were superior in was the fact that they probably have the MVP this year in Aaron Judge, and he had just been almost like borderline non-existent this playoffs. Other than the last 2 games of that Cleveland series, I was very disappointed in the way that Aaron Judge showed up. And I think it's just fatigue from just having a historical season. It's bound to catch up to you at some point. I think mentally too. I think that's what caught up to him. He's still a great player, but he just didn't do what he normally did in the regular season. And that was just get on base, walk more, hit for more power. And he just didn't, we just didn't see that. But all in all, in terms of the offense, I think they just met having a bad offense. It was going to catch up to them at some point. And I mean, the Astros are probably the team that can be the biggest eye opener for any team to play against. I think they're the best team in baseball, certainly the best team in the American League. And that's what their pitching came out and did, and really just mitigated almost every threat that the Yankees had to really counter that. I thought the bullpen was great. I think they have a deep bullpen. And I think the Yankees defense, if you look at 2 game-changing moments in game 3 and game 4, that outfield moment between Aaron Judge and Harrison Bader in game 3, Aaron Judge backs off, Harrison Bader misses that catch. And then in game 4, Gleyber Torres with that what looked like an errant throw. I don't think it was a horrible throw, but when Kiner Falefa's coming into second base and the momentum shifting him one way, the ball's going the other way, it's a hard play to make. It's definitely a play that should be made. I think the blame probably mostly goes towards Torres in that case, but yeah, it was a bad play. I don't think it was an awful play like some analysts and probably Yankees fans are feeling right now. But all in all, like this is exactly what we expected. The Astros came in and they dominated them. And the Yankees starting pitching, which, towards the end of that Cleveland series looked strong, with Garrett Cole picking up the winning game 4 of that series. Game 5, obviously, Nestor Cortez came out strong. And, Garrett Cole and Nestor Cortez was awful in game 4. I don't know what was going on with him, if it was an injury or if, I don't know, maybe he got the yips. I don't know, but he wasn't great. Garrett Cole, I just thought was average. I mean, he wasn't bad by any means, but you're not paying this guy, over $250 million to be just average. You're paying him to come up in the big moments, and he didn't, which was the polar opposite of the Garrett Cole we saw in the ALDS. And I thought Severino and Tyone were just average. It was just overall, they were just kind of mediocre. And you can't have mediocre when you're going up against the Houston Astros. There's not a whole lot to break down here because I think, any knowledgeable baseball analyst, any knowledgeable baseball fan would see that the Yankees were overmatched on paper, and that's just what happened here. Framber Valdez was fantastic. Lance McCullers was fantastic. Verlander was fantastic. Bullpen was fantastic, and the offense really showed up. Really impressed with Jeremy Pena, how he can fill the shoes of Carlos Correa, who's been on just numerous World Series runs and deep playoff runs with the Houston Astros. So for him to come in and really fill those roles. Come out with the ALCS MVP. I think was deserving. I think Jordan Alvarez had a solid series. Chas McCormick was another guy that flew under the radar that had a great series, and Yuli Gurriel continues his strong postseason. So offensively, a lot of things that the Phillies have to take into consideration in the World Series.
Yeah, and the Phillies, I mean, they hand the Padres an L in 5 games. How did that series play out in your eyes?
Didn't play out how I'd expect. It was a very entertaining series, so I did expect that, and I don't think I was bored at all watching that series. Two very exciting teams, but obviously Philadelphia just got the better of some of those close games, especially that deciding Game 5 with, going into the eighth inning, the Phillies are down 3-2, and Bryce Harper comes up and unloads an absolute bomb to right center field there to send them to the World Series. So, um, all in all, I think the Phillies just took advantage of capitalizing on the mistakes of especially the starting pitching of San Diego. I don't think it was as strong. Minus Yu Darvish, I was very impressed with Yu Darvish this series. But again, I think Game 1 was probably encompassed everything you needed to see in this series. That when push comes to shove, when you have two good teams going up against each other, it's who's going to make a mistake first, and then who's going to capitalize on those mistakes. And in both situations, the Padres made the mistake first, and Philly capitalized on that in that Game 1 win with two solo shots there. I think Philly played to their strengths here, that this is an offense that was built around the Powerball, as they have guys that can really capitalize you with power hitting, with Bryce Harper, with Rhys Hoskins, with Kyle Schwarber. They have just power threat after power threat, and the long ball is how you're going to win games more often, and that's normally how you capitalize on mistakes, especially when pitchers make mistakes. It's usually they leave a ball that's just far too hittable, and when you have guys like Rhys Hoskins having multi-home run games, guys like Bryce Harper cashing in on doubles, big home runs, those are the type of pitches that these guys look for. And when you have good pitchers, every pitcher is bound to make a mistake or two, even on their greatest days. And that's what you kind of have to hope for, especially when the Phillies now have to go up against such a strong Astros team, especially on the pitching side of the ball there. Verlander's not going to make a whole lot of mistakes. Framber Valdez is the quality start king. I think he's set a major league record now, if I'm correct, or some sort of, I think it's 25 or 26, maybe 27. Don't quote me on that, but he has a ridiculous stretch of quality starts right now. He's bound to go in there for at least 5 innings, and he's bound to put your team in a winning position. Lance McCullers has looked sharp since coming off the IL, and Christian Javier he's really no scrub when it comes to a fourth starter there. But I mean, the Phillies also have some power arms too. I thought Zach Wheeler was great in the CS. Aaron Nola, the one loss was him. I think they really saw everything the Padres could do, but I think they learned a lot from that game. And I was impressed with how they bounced back, heading back to Philadelphia, taking care of business at home, making sure that they don't go back to where the Padres can get comfortable again. And I think Aaron Nola should be able to bounce back in Game 1. Do I think he'll get the win? He's facing Verlander, and again, an impressive Houston offense. So I can't predict that. But I think he will be a lot better than what we saw in Game 2 of the NLCS for Aaron Nola. So overall, very exciting here. Philadelphia, again, is going to need to capitalize on whatever mistakes that Houston gives them, because this is a scary Houston team. That's why my postseason bracket, I picked Houston to win the whole thing. Obviously, I had them up against Atlanta. But Houston winning the whole thing, it still stands. I do still think that they are the best team. They were the best team heading into this playoffs, and they haven't done anything to deviate my thought process here. I still think it's Astros all the way. I think Philadelphia is certainly capable of getting a game here. I don't think the Astros are going to sweep their way again to another series win because I think Philadelphia probably has the most star power from top to bottom. Um, but I do think that they are susceptible to some of the issues when it comes to strikeouts that you know could play in the favor of Astros pitching as well.
Yeah. So when it comes to, I mean, Houston and their run so far, the Mariners didn't give them much trouble, and the Yankees obviously didn't give them much trouble offensively. So this is obviously going to be the toughest offense they're facing in Philadelphia, right?
I'd assume so. As normally you see an offense that's led by Aaron Judge, you think that would be the hardest one. But past Judge and Stanton, this team it's easier to solve. I mean, Rizzo has had some impressive games in the postseason, but there just wasn't a lot to get excited about. I mean, Harrison Bader had a good playoffs all around. I was impressed with him, and I thought he was a good pickup at the trade deadline for them. But I think this is the one that all their the important thing is all their stars are in form right now. Maybe minus Nick Castellanos, but he's kind of had an off year. But Kyle Schwarber looks great. Reese Hoskins looks great, and Bryce Harper is Bryce Harper. Not to mention you still have JT Realmuto. You have guys like Gene Segura, guys like Alec Baum, guys like Bryson Stott that are all finding ways. They're just a resilient team that can hit in bunches, and that's what you have to do against good teams. Once they make a mistake, you have to capitalize on that, try to drive runs in, and just try to keep the line moving. Very similar to the 2014 and 2015 Kansas City Royals runs there, where their motto was keep the line moving. Once someone gets on, just find ways to keep moving because everything is amplified that much more. Every mistake, every big hit is amplified that much more in the World Series. So they really have to bring it here. But I think they handled a very good Padres team and a very hot Padres team very well. That I think they do have a chance to probably take a game or two from Houston here. I think it'll be more competitive than it looks on paper.
So obviously the Astros are 1-3 in their previous World Series appearances. They beat out the Dodgers in 2017 and 2019. They lose to the 93 win Washington Nationals. Last year they lose to the 88 win Atlanta Braves. Does that put any fear in your mind for this team potentially choking?
I think recent World Series have shown us that anyone can win a World Series on any given day. All you have to do is get in. And I think it's definitely something to note that, yeah, the Houston Astros, when they've lost in the World Series, it's been to teams that, wild card caliber teams, low 90s to high 80 win teams that, in some cases, if you just took the best playoff teams available from both leagues and you took, if in terms of last year, the best 10 teams, this year, the best 12 teams, they may not make it. Like the Braves, there were two teams that missed the playoffs last year in the Mariners and the Blue Jays, obviously being the American League, that had better win totals than the Braves, but it didn't matter. And I think when a team's hot, a team's hot. So that's why I think the Phillies definitely stand a chance here. I do think this is probably the best Astros team. I look at that 2019 team that played the Nationals, and I look at that 2021 team that played the Atlanta Braves, obviously. I think this Houston team, even the fact that they lost Carlos Correa and Garrett Cole was on those teams. They had bigger names on that team. I just think this team is more reliant on each other. And I think as a unit, this is just a team that I don't think has a weak spot, even though they've lost some of their bright spots over the past few seasons. So I think the Phillies certainly have a shot. I'm not going to write them off. But I think the Houston Astros are probably more well positioned to win the World Series this year than they have been in any of the seasons since 2017 that they've made it and lost.
Okay. Final question: Houston in how many games for you?
Now, I did say the Phillies should be able to get a game or two, so I'm going to go conservative and say Astros in six,
Okay.
which would position them to come back to Houston in game six and take care of business there. Because I do feel confident if Zach Wheeler can get a start in there, and I do feel confident in what should be. I think Ranger Suarez has looked pretty good too, and I think if he's matched up against, say, a Christian Javier or Lance McCullers, maybe that's a game that they can take. I think Zach Wheeler should put them in a position to maybe take one on the road there in game two. I do like Verlander in game one, though, despite the fact it's a great pitching matchup with Verlander and Nola. So, yeah, you know what? I'm going to go with Astros in six. But again, if the Phillies end up shocking the world and winning the World Series as an 87 win team, I wouldn't. They may have shocked the world, but it wouldn't. I'd be surprised. I wouldn't be shocked.
Okay. Well, there you have it. We'll keep you up to date throughout these, I guess, the final round here. Let us know your takes, your picks, how you see the series playing out. Like, subscribe, and stay tuned for more.